Naples for...
Naples have been dominated by broken water meters. There are hundreds of them. Some say there were thousands of meters that didn't work. The city manager resigned after trying to deny that there was a problem. Nobody knows for sure just how much money was lost in water revenue. Now there's an interim city manager. He's jumped on the problem, yet people such as our guest today say they have not all been fixed. Our guest is Dan Wall, a former meter reader whose deposition regarding conditions in the utilities department helped convince other councilmen that the problem was real. This week, Wall and Councilman Joe Herms, who's also with us, have been touring the city looking for other water problems. Before we start, let's make two things clear. Wall has never claimed to be an ideal employee, but he certainly knows what went wrong with the water department. What we are going to try to find out today is why things got so bad, and perhaps how to make them a little better and make sure it doesn't happen again. We'll be back in a minute.
Remember me? I'm the kid that had a report due on space. Then I got the new Encyclopedia Britannica.
He had a report due on space, and then he got the new Encyclopedia...
I think I made that abundantly clear.
Yes.
Anyhow, here it is. I mean, hey, everybody knows this is the greatest encyclopedia in the world. Help me get a B+.
Why not an A?
Too long. I found so much great information, I put it all in. Overkill. The next report I did was for my science class on the human body. Scored an A.
Good.
Look at this. I always wondered where my mandibula was.
For details on how you can own the new Encyclopedia Britannica...
Let's have that 800 number. Excellent.
Just call this number and we'll send you this free booklet.
Tell them about the gift.
And just for previewing Britannica in your home, we'll give you this 3-volume desk reference set.
This is like having your own research library at home.
Yes. So if you would be interested in owning the new Encyclopedia Britannica...
Don't press. They see the phone number. If they want to, they'll call.
I guess you're right.
Trust me.
Hi, I'm John Lunsford. Our guests today are Naples City Councilman Joseph Herms and a former city meter reader, Dan Wall. Dan Wall is the one of the people who helped convince the Naples City Council and residents, I believe, that there really was a problem in the water department. He signed a deposition or gave a deposition saying that there were hundreds of meters and then began to outline what was going on. Since then, interim city manager Randy Coggan has said that he thinks all the meters are fixed. Do you think that's true?
No, I know for a fact it's not. I've checked into it a little bit myself, which I was led into by friends within the utilities. They haven't been taken care of.
So you're saying in the last 2 or 3 days that you found more broken meters?
So yes.
Is that right, Jeff?
Well, Danny took me out. I didn't know whether they were broken or not, but took me out on North Gulf Shore Boulevard where the large condominiums are, where we have a lot of the really large compound meters. And we had gotten a report on Saturday that we had, the previous Saturday, that we had all of the 115 large compound meters in operation, and they'd all been checked. I was extremely surprised to find that in a matter of a 2-block area, we had 5 large compound meters, of which they have 2 dials on them. At least one of them was not functioning.
What does that mean? Is it one dial if it's not functioning?
One dial is related to the low flow, when there's a very small volume of water going through the meter. The other dial is for the very high flow. And in most instances, the very high flow was broken in that, you know, it would not read. The glass was broken on them. There was dirt inside the meter, and there was no way you could get a reading on them.
So I'm sure that Randy Coggan believed the utility department when they told him that those meters were repaired.
Yeah, I think he did, and unfortunately, I don't think the truth is coming forth out of our utility department.
So then the problem is not just going out and fixing meters, it's kind of something more major in the utilities department.
It's personal.
Who's running the utilities department now?
Well, at the present time, our city engineer, Jerry Grunwald, is in charge of it, but there's a whole separate division of that deals just with water distribution, water meters themselves, and there are a whole number of different supervisors in that division.
Why don't you tell us some of your experiences during your 2 horrible years at the city water department?
And I mean, What would you like to know? I mean, the reading aspects, the harassment, I mean,
Well,
what
I
would you like
think
to know?
that they think the most interesting thing was the fact that you were reporting broken meters while you were there.
Okay, you know, I reported them every way I could. Then we went to computer, and it was taken out of my hands. In other words, every time you didn't have to do anything. When you entered that same reading, that computer was doing all your work for you. That was the part of the game by going to computer, that it would note them. I mean, if you had your reading 0050 and you came back next month 0050, it would make note of that. It would, you know, alert itself and make note to them.
Well, before you had the computer, I've read the deposition and I've talked to you personally. The part of your problem was, you know, you were saying, well, I went in and I reported these meters and nothing would ever happen. Didn't they fix any meters ever?
Yes, but they didn't get into it on a scale which they should have. You know, in other words, I mean, the major problem with those is you have your large and your industrial meters, and that's your high revenue. That's where your money is. There's no maintenance programs on these whatsoever. The American Water Works Association recommends that these be tested once every 2 years. I've lived here for 30 years. Those meters have been in ground longer than me, and they have never been tested. And that's not...
Well, was it a problem that got out of, in other words, did it just get out of control, or did they, I mean, meters don't break down that often, do they?
Me personally, it was never brought under control. You know, I don't think it was ever, it's not that did it get out of control, it was just never brought under control. I mean, this was happening before I got there. These meters, I just didn't start working there and they were stuck. They were stuck when I got there. They went back if you check into the history, they go back a lot further.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Danny speaks about testing all the meters and haven't been tested for, you're saying, the last 30 years. We just recently bought the equipment. I think it arrived in December, so that we finally will be able to test them. But the information that I have was they never even had the equipment to field test these large compound meters.
So that even when they were computerized, if somebody was using no water, that was just ignored?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, but it's also interesting that even when it was computerized, every day they had printouts that showed them all the zero consumption meters in the utility division. Every single day.
So how could that be ignored?
Good question.
Let me ask you something else. Was there a decline in revenue over the years from water?
You can't pinpoint a decline in revenue. You can calculate a potential decline in revenue, but you really can't pinpoint a specific decline in revenue. All you can see is a huge elevation in the percentage of unbilled water. We had, I think, in 1978, 9.9% of all our water went unbilled. By the 1990, it got up to over 20% unbilled water.
And from what we've been able to find out, the 5% is kind of a normal. When it hits 10%, it's a big danger signal. I mean,
it depends on how it's calculated. The communities that I have talked to, they seem to run from about 4% with communities that really have a handle on things to a high of 11 or 12% with communities that don't have a very good handle on it.
Danny, one of the things that I don't understand, and you've lived here all your life. Your father works for the city, it still does. So when you went to work for the water department, you had some idea of what the bureaucracy it was about, the various alliances that take place in all companies, you know, all large enterprises. So you couldn't have been like totally surprised at that. Well, why do you think that people resented it so much when you told them that the meters were, that we started reporting broken meters?
I tell you the truth, I can't pinpoint that neither. Sometimes I think it was maybe a lower, I was pretty much the lowest on the paid scale and everything.
Yeah.
I just didn't like to be told what to do because they've ran this for, I mean, it was just, you know, they've just had it under control. You don't have somebody come in that's making $15,000 a year and tell somebody that's making possibly $50,000 a year how to do their job. That's the only thing I can think of.
And you eventually did a big report and you gave it to the assistant city manager, Mark Wiltsey. And I think that now Wiltsey is saying that he gave that to Jones. But in your deposition, you said that he took it to the utilities department. Do you know for sure what happened to it?
I just got my copy back. I really don't know what happened to it. I don't know what channels it went to. See, the main one on mine was the 6-inch hospital meter. And the day that I turned that in, they hauled a 6-inch old meter in and start repairing it. So I thought, wow, I've got results.
Probably did it.
But then it just sat for months and months. I mean, it just went boom under the carpet again. That sat, and finally they put it in, but it was 6 months later or something. You know, it wasn't immediate. And
Why do you think that way? I mean, there's no advantage to an employee to have a malfunctioning department.
There's no advantage to the employee or the supervisor to have a malfunctioning department. There had some substantial size meters that were receiving a substantial amount of water for free. It leaves open some questions as to, you know, what types of situations existed there to take advantage of the situation. And we have a situation down at the dock where we had left open a situation that allowed some employees to take advantage of it. And I'm hoping that we will proceed at least with a criminal investigation that digs deep enough and goes through all levels of government that we can find out the answers. Because at the present time, our upper level people have not been asked any questions.
Well, one of the stories that's been in the paper was about Windstar development where the building hooked up with no meter whatsoever. And have you found more instances of that at Windstar?
Yeah, I think at the present time we have, this week they located a 6-inch line that had no meter on it. They also located another 2-inch line that has no meter on it. 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, they actually found a 4-inch line that had no meter to it. And of course, they placed meters on all of those. And previous to that, when the first situation occurred, if I'm not mistaken, they found 2 additional meters. Or I should say 2 additional lines with no meters.
If a plumbing contractor, a licensed plumbing contractor, goes out and hooks up a building with no meter, couldn't he get his license revoked? I mean, isn't there some trust involved in when he's a licensed contractor that he does things right?
I'm not so sure he can have his license revoked. I'm sure that if he does it, he has some potential criminal action against him for doing it, theft of services.
I want to make a point on that too, is, see, everybody keeps asking me, well, what did you know about Windstar? You know, they were tapped into a main. What you got to keep in mind, if there is no meter there, the reader isn't going to read. I mean, you have no, if they bury it and there's no meter there, why would a meter reader know about it?
Somebody that's even going to know that it's there. But
exactly.
What I'm wondering is how that can happen. I mean, how you can go out, plumb water into a building without a meter.
See, I wasn't even aware of that, and that was news to me, too.
Yeah.
We'll be right back to talk about this some more, and I've got some other questions. Stay tuned.
This is Community Bulletin Board, a date book of activities in the Southwest Florida area. The Fort Myers Track Club presents the 13th Annual Edison Festival 5K Classic Friday, February 16th at 6 p.m. in downtown Fort Myers. For more information, call 278-4786. The Naples Art Crafters will hold its Arts and Crafts Show also Friday, February 16th, beginning at 9:30 a.m. at the C&S Bank on 3401 North Tamiami Trail. For more information, call 591-0748. The German-American Social Club of Cape Coral will hold the second of its 1991 Beer Garden Fest Sunday, February 17th. For more information, call 772-4897. If your organization would like to announce an event, write to WEVU TV, P.O. Box 06260, Fort Myers, Florida, 33906.
virtually unspoiled paradise. With all of the dynamic changes here, we at WeView TV think it's time to reassess the attributes of our lifestyle with an eye toward the future. So whether you live here or you're contemplating residence here, we think you'll learn why more and more people are discovering our showcase of paradise. Join WeView TV tonight at 7 for Southwest Florida Showcase of Paradise.
Hi, I'm John Lunsford, and we're talking to Dan Wall, who's a former meter reader who came back and provided the city with a great deal of information about problems in the utilities department, and Naples City Councilman Joe Herms. You kind of have an extra reason for being interested in this. You were a water meter and meter reader, and you weren't real satisfied with the way the department was being run, but you also, as I understand it, your family owns a great deal of property, so you pay water bills too.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So you see what the effect of that is. Tell us about your $119 water bill. What was it, $191 water bill?
Yeah, it was 100. it on an average, it averaged, you know, $5, $6, $7. Then it jumped to $191. That's what brought on the whole problem. In our rentals, most likely they're the lowest rent in Collier County. We have very low rent. Mm-hmm. In other words, sometimes we have trouble getting our rent, and they're responsible for their water bills. And you give them, say, well, you're having trouble paying your rent, $300 a month. Here's your $191 water bill. Try to pay that.
That's a killer. How does that happen? Is the meter's just broken?
That was never fully explained. They tested that meter, and I watched the test, and I've tested meters. The test was just a joke. I just couldn't get nothing done about that. And I just...
Did you pay the $191?
Yes, me and my wife did. And another thing is what we do, why I have an interest here. I have 12 meters that I'm responsible for in the city utilities district. When I left Naples, we had to take them out of my wife's name so they couldn't be tracked back to me, and the harassment continue.
What difference? What would happen?
I just didn't want that wall name tied to anything because I had a lot of trouble with my rentals. I mean, it was just, I've had 4 problems up there, you know, arguing with my supervisors, gaskets that they're responsible for, they weren't repairing. It just went on and on. My wife went in it with one, they're responsible for gaskets on both sides of the meter, and he would not, Joe Watson would not repair their gaskets. And so what my wife, he said, that's your responsibility? I said, Joe, it's not our responsibility. That is the city's. And so anyway, him and my wife went on and on. He had to call, she called him every day and said, Joe, are you going to fix it? And he said, no, I'm not. It's your responsibility. And she said, what you're telling me is I can tell my tenants to remove the meter, take it down to Sunshine, because you can't buy these gaskets at a hardware store. You just can't do it. I mean, they're a certain size. And he told her, yes, that's what I want you to do. So you replace it. You can have one of your tenants do it. She says, okay, I want you to type me up a letter stating to that effect that I'm authorized to say to my tenants, here, pull your water meter out and fix it yourself. And this kept on going on for a week and a week. He would.
I didn't think you were supposed to meddle with water.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just another form of that harassment I was telling you about. It just goes.
Well, you worked for the county for a while.
Yes, I did.
How'd you make out in the county?
Great. I had great bosses. Everything was great. I should have stayed. I really regret not staying now. I was offered a year before I left Collier County to come back and read for them, and I said, no, I'll just stay with the city until I leave.
Okay, why do you think that there was that difference between the environment in the city and the county?
Well, let me explain one thing to you that hasn't been brought out in either. Tom Sanderlin, which was my boss at the city, which fired me, was my boss at the county. And he was the reason I left the county, and he followed me down to the city and pursued me again.
So after he fired you in the city, you went to work for the county, then he...
Vice versa. I worked for the county, then went to the city, then he followed me down there later.
Yeah.
And I do want to state the fact that...
Did you get along with him in the county?
No, not at all.
No?
Kind of, he just has a problem. I mean, with me, he just had friction with me. He just could not get along with me.
But
But
basically,
was it just limited to you, or the other employees too?
He took it out on everybody, believe me. I mean, it's like there's a lot of people that are very irritated with this man.
if you were going to, like if somebody said, okay, Danny, you're going to become Director of Utilities, what would you do?
First thing I would do is pretty much probably terminate my management and restructure it.
Get even with all those guys.
Yeah. Not so much get even, just, straighten it out. I mean, because, see, what the thing is you're holding that management there. There are employees down there that are dying to get their point across, but they're afraid of retaliation. Believe me, they're down there. They're begging for some attention. I mean, they want to talk to somebody, but they want to keep their jobs. These people, their lives depend on these jobs, which mine, if I didn't have other sources of income, would have depended on this too, and they put me out in the street. And believe me, I grew up in Naples. And when I grew up there, you didn't have much choice to have a job. The city of Naples was, Florida Power and Light had the telephone company, but it was a matter of, well, my dad don't work there. I couldn't get in. So my dad was very well taken care of, and still is, by the city of Naples. He loves it. And so I figured, well, you see him and go, well, I'll try that. It doesn't seem that bad. I think I could make a living at that. And I truly wanted to work to a directorship, which Jim Chaffee took me into his office and told me that he had great plans for me, that I was being groomed as an assistant director. In other words, I never got the money. I got the satisfaction knowing I got that far. I would have done the city of Naples a great service, believe
Well,
me.
do you think that, Joe, do you think that obviously it's more than just a matter of fixing meters? I mean, what efforts are you aware of to straighten that department out?
Well, Randy Coggan at the present time is counting on the police department to finalize an investigation. At that particular point, he feels that he'll have the information to make a determination of whether there is any need for any terminations. I've taken a little bit different attitude, and I've encouraged him to go in on his own as the top management person in the city, sit down, talk with a number of these employees, talk with the people in the department, get a perspective of where and why we have a problem, and take the necessary steps to solve the problem.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of a two-pronged thing. I mean, number one, you have a possibility of employees that were behaving improperly or perhaps favoring somebody by not putting a meter in and letting them get free water, or avoiding impact fees by not getting meters and stuff like that. That's problem number one, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is the lack of cohesive management in that department.
Right, and you're not going to find out that fact purely from a criminal investigation. You've got to use an investigative management style that sits down and talks with people, finds out where and why there are problems, finds out who is responsible, who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth.
And that would be the job of a new utilities director.
Well, perhaps a new utilities director, but we don't have a new utilities director. At the present time, we have our city manager, who I think that the responsibility has to sit with.
You wanted
Yeah, there's just something I want to bring up. When I left, I've been keeping track of this through the newspaper and things like that. And when I left, what I'm curious to know, I just left without anything. I was fired, I was gone. And I was kind of curious, did I forget to fill out some kind of form, because I never got a lucrative consulting contract or no severance pay or anything. It's like I watch the newspaper and people are getting it. And I'm just wondering if I overlooked something and didn't fill out some papers.
You think that you should have gotten a $20,000 a year
I'd have been happy with it.
consulting contract like the manager did?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, that's what it appears.
Maybe not 20, maybe 5.
I would have settled for, I didn't get anything.
A couple $100 bucks?
I didn't even get my uniforms or my ID tag.
Do you think that there's any interest on the Naples City Council for a utilities authority, kind of a semi-independent authority that oversees utilities? It's a very, very sophisticated, complicated business.
I don't think the authority is perhaps the necessary ingredient there, but I think we definitely, to prevent this type of problem from happening again, what I would try to look at is some type of an internal auditor that would actually audit all of the city facilities and report directly to council. I think there's some validity, potential validity to looking into that situation, because I think it becomes obvious that you need somebody totally independent that is not controlled by the manager. If the manager's doing a bad job, we need to know about it.
Well, you have that now. You have that now. You have an independent audit that's done every year.
It's an independent audit, but the person that controls the contracts for that independent audit is the manager.
Thank you very much, and we'll be right back in a few minutes.
It's important that all our beef is USDA choice, and that our meat cutters are available as long as our store is open. And we could go on and on about our outstanding variety and custom cuts. But right now, you probably just want to eat. Enjoy Publix boneless chicken breast, just $2.59 a pound.
Southwest Florida is perhaps the fastest growing region in the country, yet still a largely unspoiled paradise. With all of the dynamic changes here, we at WEVU TV think it's time to reassess the attributes of our lifestyle with an eye toward the future. So whether you live here or you're contemplating residence here, we think you'll learn why more and more people are discovering our showcase of paradise. Join WEVU TV tonight at 7 for Southwest Florida Showcase of Paradise.
Alcoholism in Southwest Florida. Some of us drink on occasion.
Congratulations.
Some of us drink because there's nothing else to do. Party! And some of us drink till our cup runneth over. Join WEVU reporter Todd Fitzgerald as he explores alcoholism in Southwest Florida in Bottled Up, a special report, Monday on the WEVU News at 6 and 11.
I got to ask you one fast question. Just give me a straight yes or no. Does the city really own an air-conditioned backhoe with AM, FM stereo radio and heat and air conditioning?
It's got the air conditioning. Well, see, what the thing that was ordered, it came in about the day that I left. That definitely exists.
Where do they use it?
I've never seen it out on the road. See, I would have liked to have that job if I could have had a CD player installed.
Job. What we've seen here is a utility department that got completely out of control. Fixing the meters is probably not going to be enough. There's got to be some basic reorganization in order. Next week, we'll be talking to the interim Naples City Manager, Randy Coggin, to get the other side of the story. He'll be here to talk about what progress he feels has been made in correcting city's problems, and we may talk about some other things. Be sure to be with us. Thank you very much.